Councilman Benson.
Here.
Councilwoman Carson.
Present.
Councilman Teeter.
Here.
Councilman Amador. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. For the record, we're missing Councilman McEldowney and Councilman Amador. I'm open for a motion to excuse their absence. Mr. Bullock?
So moved.
Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to excuse Councilman McEldowney and Councilman Amador. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. Now I'd like to invite the audience to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, Valentino Serrano, we can say that he passed away.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd like to ask the staff to pass the microphone around and allow the audience to introduce themselves.
Danny Thomas.
Betty Thomas. Angela Henson.
Jeffrey Justice. Guillermo Serna.
Karen O'Donnell, Parks and Recreation.
Michelle Claymore, Economic Development.
Shirley Henine.
All right, thank you all for being here this evening. We're going to start off with the agenda on the proclamations and recognition portion of the agenda. I'd like to invite any Parks and Recreation and golf staff who are in attendance to come forward. That's it? Just you, Karen. That's all right.
That's enough.
You're enough.
That's
You're
enough.
enough. All right, I would like to ask Bob to read the proclamation, please.
Proclamation. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Commerce City. And whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for individuals with disabilities, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas the City of Commerce City recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, on behalf of the City of Commerce City, hereby proclaim that July is recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Commerce City, and encourage all citizens to share the individual benefits that come from parks and recreation. In witness whereof, I have herein to set my hand and seal this to be affixed on the 6th day of July, 2015, City of Commerce City, Colorado. Sean Ford, Mayor.
Thanks, Bob. I have a proclamation before us. I'm open for a motion to approve the proclamation. Mr. Bullock.
Move to approve the proclamation.
Mr. Teeter. I have a motion and a second to approve the proclamation as read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, saying nay. Motion is carried. Before we come down, I just wanted to say thanks, Karen, to you and all the staff in the Parks and Recreation Department for the efforts to keep our parks nice. The new improvements, the new facilities that are coming online. It'll be really good for this community to have that additional recreation opportunity. So thank you. Now, will the council join me down front, please?
Okay. Count of 3, 1, 2, 3. More. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
as we move into citizen communication, we had somebody that came in after the sign-up sheet was picked up, so you might want to ask if there's anybody else after you go through the list.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next item on the agenda is citizen communication. And I would need to remind everybody, as we approach the election season, council needs to remind the candidates for elected office that political activity in city buildings is prohibited per Resolution 2008-60. This includes campaigning from the podium. When I call you up, please give your name and address for the record and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. We have several people that have signed up to speak. We'll start with Jeffrey Justice. Come on up. And good evening.
Jeffrey Justice, Longmont, Colorado, care of 7887 East 60th, Commerce City. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. One of my jobs is the administrator for the Facebook page Dogs Shot by Police. We investigate and report on officer-involved dog shootings nationwide. We are advocates for police reform and more advanced training in non-lethal dog encounter tactics and procedure. I talk with dozens of law enforcement agencies and city officials every year concerning these cases and police reform. Commerce City is one of them. I have read the recent media reports about the Colorado FOP's campaign to deliver a vote of no confidence regarding Chief Smith and his ability to lead and reform this city's police department. I oppose the FOP's position. I first came to this council in 2012 to speak out about the shooting of the dog Chloe by a Commerce City police officer. It was before Chief Smith was here. I was aware at that time of numerous reported difficulties within the department. There have been multiple chiefs within a 6-year period and media reports of struggles within the agency. There were documented problems long before Chief Smith arrived. It is all public record. Anyone can find it, and there is no need for me to go into any detail. I've also followed the FOP and its statements by officials and the rank-and-file members. Because I am genuinely interested in law enforcement issues in the Denver area, advocating police reform does not indicate that one doesn't respect the badge. The FOP officials never supported Troy Smith and never wanted him to be chief of police. He is not their guy. Never was, and in my opinion, never will be. So how could any FOP communication and media campaign be any different? Nothing new here. I contacted Troy Smith when he was still in Grand Junction. I didn't give him a chance to get here and settle in. I wrote him about my views on the Chloe case and officer-involved dog shootings. He replied to my communication in a reasonable manner. He was fair. I attended the first council meeting when Chief Smith was sworn in. My agenda was the Chloe case. I approached Chief Smith at the end of the meeting. He was cordial and reasonable. I'm not saying he agreed with my position, and he never threw any of his cops under the bus, ever. During the past few years, I have contacted Commerce City officials and police commanders multiple times regarding disputes related to the Chloe case, our numerous protests, and other more recent animal encounter issues. I have always been treated fairly by this city and always felt that I had been heard. I have reviewed the public documents related to Chief Smith's plan of reform and change. Anyone interested can have access to the information, and I advise people to do so. I support Chief Smith's plan and Commerce City officials backing that plan despite FOP opposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in today. We'll go to Shelley Heaney. Is it Heaney, right? Henny? Please come forward, and good evening.
My name is Shirley Henny, and I live at 6390 Olive Street. I was here in 2013. The reason I'm here tonight is about traffic accidents in the intersection of 64th and Olive. There was one on March 7th this year and on June 17th. Commerce City has done a lot. They put up bigger stop signs. They put up signs on the stop sign saying traffic does not stop at this intersection, but people still run the stop sign, cause accidents. And they say the tow truck driver is supposed to be responsible for cleaning up the mess, but they don't. I have to go to Public Works on Rosemary Street and beg them to bring out a street cleaner to clean up the streets because there's big pieces of car parts and that people run over. I can pick up a lot, but I cannot use a push broom in the middle of the street because there's too much traffic. They don't, the accident on June 17th, there was 2 different tow truck drivers. The first one, he picked up a lot. The second one came when there was no police around. All he told me was this lady was going to get a free tow because she was related to someone that works there at their tow truck company. He didn't even look to see what kind of mess was still left. I don't know what to do. I have to go beg all the time, at Public Works, and they tell me it's not really their job to clean up the mess. But the tow truck companies do not have street cleaners. I don't know what to do. I'm just asking, for help. They did put in speed bumps. They put in a really nice one they had to take out because people wouldn't look at the sign saying, slow down, They had to take that one out and put in a speed bump that really doesn't do too much, but at least it's there. Well, it's not Commerce City that's causing it. It's the people that cannot read the stop sign and stop right there. Some days somebody's going to get hurt. It's probably going to be me or someone because these cars, they come up on the sidewalk. I've had to put posts around my fence. I am so scared I won't even go to that intersection, and I live right there on the corner. I'll go around the block. I'm just asking for help. I don't know why. How come the tow trucks don't clean it up? I have to spend a lot of time cleaning up the messes. Is that my responsibility? I don't mind if that's my job.
No, ma'am.
I take pictures. I have photographs. There are semis. I don't know if this is a law or not, but there's a lot of semis that come down 64th Avenue all the time. I know it's a hard time for them to get down 60th because of the roundabout on 60th and Olive. I just need answers. And they were nice about it. Not at first at Public Works. The lady said she just answers the phones. I need to take it up with somebody here. But some gentleman called me, and he did send out a street sweeper both times. But I'm just saying I have to beg because of all the these cars are built cheap, so when they get hit, a lot of the plastic parts, they just fly all over, and I'm sorry, and there's just so much to clean up. Broken glass, the radiator leaks. Oh,
Well, you're all right. I think I got the gist of it.
okay, I'm sorry.
As well as the council, and I need to tell you, first of all, it's not your job. Secondly, you don't have to beg, but if we don't know about it, then it's hard for them to know that there's stuff that needs to be cleaned up there. So to give a call and ask doesn't necessarily mean you're begging. You can just say, hey, there's a situation, there was a wreck here, and they left all the stuff. At the end of the day, I'm going to ask the chief to come up here. I know he's back here somewhere.
He's right at the very back.
Chief?
He's talking to that gentleman.
Yeah. Chief? Can you come up here for a second, please?
I was just going to say one more thing on the accident on June 17th. The lady said, oh, I'm sorry, it was on my cell phone. I didn't see the stop sign, and she had an 8-year-old little girl in her car. It's like, oh, my gosh, well, put the cell phone down and when you're driving.
Well, and when you were here the last time, we heard you.
I'm sorry.
We improved the stop signs. We put in speed humps.
You've done a lot.
The problem is it's really tough for this council to legislate stupidity. You have to obey the laws, and unfortunately, everybody doesn't obey the laws. We just went through a 4th of July where every neighborhood in this town was exploding with fireworks, and they're illegal here. So we do enforce to the best of our ability, but if there's not an officer there that can see a lady go through the stop sign on her cell phone, there's nothing we can do about that. We try to make it safer, and we want people to abide by the law. I do have the chief here. Chief, whose responsibility is it after an accident occurs to pick up the debris that is left behind so that this lady doesn't have to worry about sweeping it up?
Mayor, that is part of our contract services with the tow companies that provide for the tows in Commerce City. And so I was in the back taking notes while you were speaking, and I would suggest maybe you and I could have a conversation in the back of the room here in just a minute, and I get some more information from you and give you a contact person to get a hold of anytime you have these kind of issues within the police department. Obviously, traffic safety is very important to our department, and we are doing a lot of education and enforcement across the community. 64th and Olive is a known location for us with respect to accidents, and it's one of those we're working on. So our supervisors in their traffic division would be happy to hear more from you and understand what the concerns are that you have.
And my other concern was my homeowner's insurance has gone skyrocketed because a lot of these people don't have insurance. So we have to go through our homeowners because they cause so much damage. I went from a $250 deductible to $1,000. My homeowner's insurance was around $1,200. Now it's $2,000 a year because of these accidents. You know, I'm thinking I pay to have homeowners insurance, and, you know, I try to help them. I try to, you know, these people don't have insurance, and I feel like I'm getting the blame because these people don't have it, and it's coming out of somebody's pocket. You know, if it was a couple $100, we would fix it, but it's a couple thousand that they do damage to our property. And, you know, I know it's just property. It's nobody's life or anything.
But your property matters. But
I like living here.
Sure, and I'm glad you do live here, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to people running stop signs, I can't stop that. Nobody in this room can stop that. All we can do is have our laws and enforce them to the best of our ability. 64th Avenue, you mentioned the trucks. That is a truck route for trucks to get from east to west. So it's a wider road. 60th Avenue is not a truck route all the way through. That's why you see more trucks on 64th Avenue. Okay? It just so happens that you live on a truck route. You live on a street that's busier. We did put in the bigger speed humps, and I think they were working great.
I thought so.
Because people were tearing their transmissions out of their car when they went too fast.
Because they wouldn't look at the signs.
That's right.
Slow down.
But at the end of the day, we had complaints from neighbors, your neighbors, about the fact that the speed humps were too high. So we got the speed humps redone at the height they're supposed to be. Our intent isn't to damage people's cars either. Our intent is to slow people down through the intersection. I would suggest that you visit with Chief Smith, get the information that you need so you have a contact number. I don't think that you should ever feel you need to sweep something up out of the road, you can contact this person that's in charge. We'll make sure those tow drivers, that's what the police officers will do. They'll go back to the tow company and make them clean it up. But at the end of the day, I want you to be happy in this community. I'm sorry that there's been accidents at that intersection, and we're doing our best to slow traffic down.
I'm just saying, the people that cause the accidents, I don't think they're getting any action taken against them, because else they would not do what they do.
Well, that would be up to the judge, and I don't know what kind of, who did it and how much points and what the fine was. That's up to the court system. But at the end of the day, the chief is the person, the contact that you need. He will give you so that you can get what you need from this city for peace and happiness in front of your home.
Okay, I'm sorry it took so much time.
That's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
All right, next, Guillermo Cerna. Good evening.
Guillermo Serna, 14122 East 102nd Place, Commerce City, 80022. Not sure whether I should make my comments on Resolution 2015-68 now, or...
If it's on the agenda, we need you to wait until that time, and I will ask if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, on that, you will want you to wait until the resolution comes up.
Good enough.
All right? Thank you. All right, next, Glenn Murray. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Glenn Murray. Address is 11010 Havana Street, Brighton. I'm the only farmer in your city, and what brings me here tonight is part of that reason. I want to give the city a reminder that the state of Colorado has a noxious weed law. Particular weed that I'm talking about is called Canadian thistle. There is a lot of that along your access roads, and it is in the point that it's starting to go to seed, and it is a nasty weed. So if you would address that one, matter of fact, the county has a weed program. If you don't have people to do that, you can contact the county, and they will actually come out with their spray truck and do some of that weed control. But I'd encourage the city to do it. The other thing is at least out north, and particularly along Havana Street, it seems like we've been ignored a little bit as far as the weed mowing. We're, shall we say, substantially past the 6-inch limit. Things there looks a little ragged. And a lot of the weeds there, that's what I'm talking about, mainly from 104th to the north, clear up to 120th. If you drive that road, there is Canadian thistle like you would not believe. The other thing which I had addressed the city sometime back on, as far as the grading of the dirt roads in the city, it needs a lot of help, guys. I'm sorry, but the roads, there's not a lot of dirt roads in the city, but what there is it's in pretty bad shape. So those are the comments. I hope you can address those and improve that. Thank you.
Hang out there for a second, Glenn. I just wanted to let you know, number one, you know of all the rain we've been having, and now it's starting to dry up. We've had a few good weeks. We'll make sure Public Works gets notified about the weed mowing in your area as well as the grading. Because I know with the traffic, Potomac and 112th, it falls apart in a hurry. But I did want to mention that early spring, it was late winter. We did meet with the county. This council did agree to expand our weed control situation with noxious weeds. We went through some planning. I believe that the last I heard is that we had made a decision to partner with the county, so that the county will be taken care of, and the primary issue was the Canadian thistle. There's a lot of open areas around the golf course and roadsides. We know it's out of control. We know it's a noxious weed, and we know now that we have a program in place with the county to be able to start taking care of that. So you will see an improvement because we did make that partnership, and their noxious weed control people will be managing our city for noxious weeds in the city part of our community, city-owned pieces. Okay, and we'll start citing people for noxious weeds with that Canadian thistle. And those, right now we make them mow a 20-foot perimeter around these large lots. If they have Canadian thistle, they will be contacted and be reminded that they have to get that taken care of based on state law. So we did put a program together. Unfortunately, it's not fully up and running, but next year we should not have the problems that you're talking about today.
Sounds good, Mr. Mayor.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
The other
you.
thing, too, a comment, Highway 2, mowing on there, it looks much better now.
Much better, huh?
And it looks like that's CDOT, I believe, and they've sprayed a lot of those weeds, too, the
Right.
Canadian thistle, so that's an improvement.
And they did they overlaid that little piece there, which helped a bunch. too.
Yes, it did, but the image there, mowing those weeds along there, the image that it leaves for Commerce City, that greatly improves it there. so.
And just so you know, we're about ready to take over Highway 2. We will start maintaining that ourselves, and we'll be mowing those roadsides. But that construction will start next year to widen Highway 2 to 4 lanes.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, JD.
Glenn, thanks for coming in. When I saw you, I knew exactly what you were coming. I had said to Mr. Teeter, I said, it's the weeds. And you're right. When I was driving in tonight and I was coming down Peoria, if it's what I believe to be Canadian thistle, there is a lot of it, and it's between 3 and 4.5 foot tall. And, I mean, it's just a massive amount. So if we could take a look at that. And then I'm not sure who owns all that property there, but that 20-foot setback is not being taken care of anywhere down the Peoria.
Well, Peoria, right when you make the curve, there's a sidewalk there. The Canadian thistle is 4 feet high in between the sidewalk and the road. On the right side or on the north side of that curve, when you're approaching 104th, it does need to be taken care of. I don't know who the property owner is either, but I can assure you that the city manager is taking notes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I know there's some other folks. Please raise your hand if you came in to speak at Citizen Communication. All right, the lady in the front here first. Come on up. And welcome. I need you to state your name and address for the record, please.
Diane Thompson, 11462 Chambers Drive. And Mayor and council members, I came before you quite a few weeks back about our driveways in the reserve at Buffalo Run with the new builders. And I know that the first time that I took a walk down the street with city people and with local, they kept saying that, comparing our driveways to others and that they were acceptable. See, this one's this way and this one's this way. And I know you've all seen the pictures and you've heard our complaints before. Local came to us with a agreement that the city asked them to put together. And the agreement stated that we were not allowed to park in our driveway, that we were not allowed to wash our car in our driveway, that if somebody removed snow, the other person had to pay, like if they had to contract it out, then the other person had to pay within 5 days or they'd be fined. My question to City Council is, if there is not an issue with these driveways, why do we have to sign an agreement when nobody else in the neighborhood is doing it? And last time also, we had quite a few members from our community speak, and Mr. Genova said that he did not want to lose any more members from our neighborhood. Well, it has come to be that we have our house up for sale. So I just want you to know that there's huge disappointment in what has happened in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, I need you to stay there for a second. The council doesn't know about, we don't run the day-to-day operations of the city. We take care of legislative and policy issues. I'd ask Brian to speak on the driveways as to where things are today, because we didn't direct anybody to write that agreement. That would be a staff protocol. Brian, can you speak to these driveways and where we're at? Or Chris, one of the two of you?
I'm going to ask Mr. Kramer to speak about the specifics of the agreements that Local Homes has been talking to adjacent homeowners about. He's more familiar with those details than I am.
It's important to me whether, did the city direct them to write this agreement and to put this stuff in there? Those things are important to me. So, Chris, go ahead.
No, the city, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Ms. Thompson, the city did not direct or request that the local do those. In fact, they suggested that to us. And after the initial conversation at the Citizen Communication a couple of weeks ago, we actually had asked local to not go out and communicate until we better understood what the issues were ourselves. But once we understood what some of the complaints were, they said, again, can we please go out? And we said, certainly. But I think the assessment of what, we saw a copy of it. We in no way provided language nor directed there to be anything to be included specifically, but we saw a copy of it, and it does include many of the things that were already mentioned, including plowing, maintenance, et cetera.
Dave Limna from Local was at our house just before we came tonight, and he specifically said that the city told them to come and bring us the agreement, and that they told us to write it, told them to write it.
What's the situation, Chris? I guess my question is this: how are we going to deal with that? I feel for the resident, if they have a driveway already, and it ends up becoming a shared driveway when they add on to it. Why can't they park in their driveway, and why wouldn't the snow removal be their half of that driveway? I'm not understanding why we would end up in the situation that you're talking about, ma'am.
Because that driveway that Local added is only about 5 foot long. So they have to back into our driveway to get out of their house.
Right, but I guess you're misunderstanding. If I bought a house in Commerce City and I have a driveway and I'm secure, why then do I have to agree to not park in my driveway? It's not my problem.
It's actually, the way I read the agreement is the other way around. It gives both sides the opportunity to use the other side so that they have more flexibility with using it in a shared driveway concept. It actually doesn't prohibit one side from using the other side. It's the other way around. It allows both sides to use both sides.
Right, so you can't park in your driveway?
Well, I think you would have the opportunity to park in your driveway. We have discussed the situation with Local. What's out there today isn't necessarily the final configuration. We are requesting that Local evaluate adding some additional concrete on the Local home side, just to ensure that if you wanted to park in the neck of the driveway, that you'd have an opportunity to do that while still not blocking the access for the other unit.
Let me ask you a question, the same question in a different way. If I bought a house, I already have my driveway in place, and they're going to make a smaller driveway on the other side, and those people need to use my driveway, why do I not have the right to say, no, I'll maintain my part of my driveway, and I won't use any of yours, so stay off of mine? I'm really perplexed with this whole situation. I think it's terrible. I really hope that Local can figure this out, because here we are stuck with a building situation where we don't have control over those homes and how they got built. We approved the original elevations of those homes, but now we have a different builder. It's getting built a different way, and I do have sympathy for your situation, but I just am not comprehending how, I can't believe they sold all these homes, because I wouldn't buy a home that I had to deal with the shared thing. That's just me personally. And I realize that it's an issue with Local, and they have the right and can pull the permits to build them. But is it a city issue, or is this a developer issue, a builder issue, if you will?
May I speak on that?
Well, let me let him first, and then I'll come back to you.
We have been in contact with Local. Our efforts are making sure that we have city standards and the covenant that was referenced a few weeks ago. And just to clarify, the covenant is not an HOA covenant. It was an agreement that Carapace, the previous builder, had signed. So we are trying to do everything we can to make sure that those city standards in the covenant, what's outlined in the covenant, those are met. And so how you meet, if those covenants and those standards may not necessarily outline a perfect configuration where neither side has to use any of those of the other driveway, but they are going to be the minimums. And that's certainly what we have the opportunity and the authority to enforce, and that's what we're going to be doing. Will it be to everyone's satisfaction? I'm not sure.
Do these folks have the right not to determine not to sign this agreement?
Yes.
I would assume so. I'm no lawyer, But that's certainly, that's a conversation between local and the adjacent property owners.
All right. Now, ma'am, go ahead. I think I've got the information I need.
To answer that last question, when I spoke to Dave Windman tonight, I said, if we go to close on our house and somebody has to sign that, that's going to make it even harder to sell. But since we were here the last time, I don't believe we've heard anything from the city. And I know that a lot of people here have seen our driveway. I think Mr. Benson has, haven't you? And I know Mr. Douglas has, and you have.
I have. I've seen it.
I would encourage you to drive by and see the driveway. I don't see, I've been told, once the house is built, once that foundation's in, there's nothing we can do about it. And, you know, I know you know the whole story about, you know, originally it was patio homes, and we moved in for reasons. My husband has some health issues. This was just the last straw with the city and different things that have happened along. And I'm sorry for that, because we actually love the area we live in, and it's just a shame that our neighbors are going to be losing more people. Thank you.
Chris, the developer bought the lots and they have to have the right to build, but do they have to build these? I guess, better yet, I hate shared driveways. Just so you know, it's my opinion, and I wish the city wouldn't allow shared driveways, and I'd like to see that change. That's my personal preference. I just think shared driveways are a bad deal all the way around. It never works out right. And I know it may not help your situation because the builder does own the lot. They have the right to build it, and I don't know what becomes a civil matter between you and the builder versus, you know, what involvement the city had. But at the end of the day, can we make it better for people in the future not having to deal with a shared driveway scenario?
Well, you know, the whole neighborhood had shared driveways. We understood that, but
Okay.
they were large enough to accommodate it. And so we really didn't mind the shared driveways. But what bothered me from the beginning is the city just went by the paperwork. They never came out and looked at the size of things or how things were going to be constructed there. I mean, they have their blueprints or whatever. But when you see it in person, whole different story.
Well, and I don't understand the fact that these homes, from my understanding, the ones that are built are all sold.
They are sold, and they're too large for the lots, every single one of them. They're too large for the lot from the original, from what we were expecting when we bought that house.
Well, I am truly sorry for your frustration, but this is a staff matter that you need to work with Chris and local and see if you can get anywhere. I'm sorry that you have got to the point where you feel like you need to sell your home. But the problem is the cart's before the horse. The house is built.
Exactly.
And if the house wasn't built, then there's opportunity for us to step in and try to get local to move the house back or move the setback for the driveway back. But at this point in time, it's not really a council issue because we deal with legislation and policy. We can stop it from happening again, but you have to work with the staff to try to get to that point. And all I would say is if I had a shared driveway and I was forced to or asked to sign an agreement, if the agreement didn't meet my satisfaction, I would have an attorney look at it and determine whether I had to sign the dang thing or not.
We're not signing it,
All right,
no
well,
matter what.
There being my point.
And I just wish that, Mayor, that you would at least drive by and take
I
a
will,
look.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Not a problem, thank you. We've got a couple people that have requested to speak to you, ma'am. Come back up for a second. I'll start with Mr. Benson.
Well, like you said, I've been out there, and I guess I'm just surprised when somebody goes in to get a building permit, they have to present a site plan, do they not, to get a building permit?
They do.
They do, okay. So, have you been out there, Chris?
I have.
You know, across the street, they've got shared driveways, but they're easily big enough for 2 cars, maybe almost 3 cars, to get in there at the same time. This is a driveway that is only big enough for 1 car. You've got the brick wall of one house on one side and the brick wall of the other house on the other side. how could this get through our building department? I mean, on the other side where they have a double driveway, it's just fine. There's plenty of room in there, you know. Yeah. But this way, you have this little canyon-type thing that you go down. If you're going in, nobody else can get out. You've got to go up there and park in the area near the garage so somebody else can get out, or vice versa. How does this happen?
Well, again, the final, what you see out there today may not necessarily be the final configuration. We've already discussed with local about adding additional pavement on the newly constructed side to add width to the driveway to prevent the kinds of scenarios you're talking about.
But there's no way to do that on the driveways that are built, because you have a brick wall here and a brick wall here. It's like a canyon. You can't get out. I mean, there's no way, unless you move the houses, you're not going to widen that driveway. Am I correct about that?
That's correct.
Well, I mean the portion of it that's below where the garage doors are, where you might, if somebody left their car parked in the driveway, there would be more width to be able to get around.
The houses.
Well, there's different configurations throughout. No two shared driveways in this development are really the same. And so we have one condition where the two garage doors are in the rear of the property. So you actually have to access those garage doors by traversing between the houses. We actually there's some existing homes that were built by the previous developer that have that condition. And then there's one of these three that have that condition. We have others where they're in the front.
On the west side of the street?
Excuse me?
Are you talking about on the west side of the street, the previously built
Yes.
houses on the west?
Yes.
Because that's no problem. It's
Right,
on
I'm
the
just-
east side where she's talking about, where you have a driveway that's wide enough for one car, and there's two brick walls on either side of it, and you've got two houses sharing that driveway going back to their garages.
Right.
If I'm saying anything that's inaccurate, ma'am, correct
No,
me.
you're correct.
Okay.
And the one that he is speaking about actually has another area that kind of goes back in, because that's what he means. One's here and one's kind of here. But there's still room here that's wider than our place, definitely.
So what I'm referring to is that we're working with local to widen the portion of the driveway where there's that room. There's the ability to widen it out so that there's room for two cars wide. But beyond that, what we're hoping to do, all we can do is make sure that they are meeting the standards that are in our books. And so that's what we are continuing to do. Local had asked, can we pursue this agreement in an effort to clarify some of these concerns that the residents had? And we said that sounds like a fine thing. If that will help the final result, by all means. And so that's really the steps left for us to take.
But you're saying that what has happened was in accordance and abided by our building code?
I'm saying that we are still
Nothing in our building code that would prevent this from continuing to happen in the future?
We have been talking with local about adding pavement, making changes to the driveway.
But you can't move the houses. I mean, I'm not talking about maybe what's there, I'm talking about right now in the future. Because if this is in accordance with our building code, we need to change that part of the code, because the builder should never have been able to get a building permit under these circumstances.
We are certainly looking, as we have been looking at the process overall, we always are looking for opportunities for improvement. That's a never-ending process for us. And we have identified a couple of opportunities where we can enhance the process to hopefully streamline this and make this so it's not like the situation we have today.
Well, should I bring this up at Administrative Council business, that we direct the staff to look into modifying our building code so that this situation cannot occur again in the future? Would that be an appropriate thing to do tonight? Okay. Because I really sympathize with your situation, but it's like the mayor says, if this was done in accordance with our building code, there's not a whole lot that we can do about it. You would think that the builder, just while they're sitting there building this, would know better. Why are people going to be able to get down out of this driveway? It serves two houses. What if somebody's going in when somebody else is coming out?
Well, and what
I mean,
they
the
want to
builder
add...
just didn't use good judgment, and I don't know Do you have an attorney
No.
that specializes in
No,
property
and
matters?
we had one of our neighbors check into it for us. They spoke to a couple and told us it would be a phenomenal amount for us to pay to address this. And when we spoke to local tonight, we talked about extending that concrete down. It's 5 foot wide. That's all.
You know, I've got somebody that I would suggest to you, and I think, Bob, you know Will Carpenter, don't you? I think that's a guy that might sit down and talk with you for an hour and give you a lot of good advice. His name is Willis Carpenter.
Okay.
He's probably the preeminent real estate attorney in the state of Colorado. He's getting older now, but his mind hasn't gone bad yet. But I would call the guy and just go over this is ridiculous, that this could have happened.
Well, and
I will bring up something at administrative council business to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future and that we get a change in our building code so that that nobody can get a building permit if they're going to allow something like this to happen. But I put the blame on the builder, although I don't know that they violated any laws. But you think that a builder would know better than to let something like this happen. They're out there hands-on building this thing, 2 brick walls, and here's this driveway.
You know, I actually blame both. You guys blame each other all the time. And, you know, nobody wants to take responsibility. But I do think that planning department here should be proactive and go look at things as they look at these things. And I hope that's part of what will happen in the future. Like for us, I know it's just too late. But I thank you.
But contact Mr. Carpenter, okay?
Okay, and his first name again?
Willis.
Willis.
Willis Carpenter. He's downtown Denver.
All right.
Just meet with him for an hour and see what he says. That won't cost you a whole lot of money.
Okay.
But take take photographs, take the site plans, whatever you can to show, because he'll know, he'll have some idea. Without a doubt in my mind, he will. Do you agree with that, Bob? You know Will Carpenter.
I know him well.
Right? I think that's the guy to talk to.
Anybody else?
Yep. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you for coming back. Sorry you had to come back under these circumstances. I do know this is the first rodeo with the builder. You had Carapace come in, and then that didn't end well. So local coming in, listen to the wants and needs of the neighborhood as far as design centers and everything, and that was settled on, and then for them to build, they have a good product. But when does the city get involved? Because as far as the permitting process, when the permits are pulled, at what time, I'm asking Mr. Kramer here, at what time does the city come out to make sure things are up to the spec as far as them going forward to build, as far as, I mean, the level of the house and all that stuff?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have heard that there's going to be a possibility of litigation, and my advice to the council is that you don't try and solve the problem in citizen communications, especially when what you're saying can very well, and what Mr. Kramer is saying can very well be an issue in litigation. It takes planning to answer these questions, and answering them off the top of our heads does not provide a good solution. And at this point, I would ask council to consider that. Ask a direct question, but don't ask for solutions at this point, because we're not in a position to provide a solution to a very difficult problem.
All right.
And nor am I asking for a solution. We're not here to solve it because the damage has already been done. I just want to know what the process is for the city as far as inspectors, because there's, things being said. At what time do we go out? I know that Shay's building homes, and you drive out there, and there's a certain distance from each other, there's a certain height, and they look uniformed. You drive down the street, they're all set back and everything. And we talked about setbacks and everything. And maybe the city did their due diligence to make sure those things were there. And, can't be out there every minute that a builder's building. And I understand that. So things were allowed to go a certain way, certain timelines were put in order, and just making sure, these are our citizens. We're going to have builders continue to build. And on our agenda tonight, we're talking about construction defect. So we need to make sure our policies have teeth in it so we protect our residents, not just a builder. Because the builder's going to build something that's going to sustain sustainable unit, a home, whether it's whatever structure it is, to make sure the quality is there, and if there's certain standards that are set, that they follow those guidelines. And it's up to us, the city, to make sure that those things are done. So I'm really sorry that your house is for sale, and there's no way that the house can be moved. The fact that you have to move is not right. So we have to do some homework here to make sure going forward that this isn't repeated, because it's, damage is done. So I truly apologize for that, and we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Benson?
I just want to say I agree with what Bob said about it. Anytime that there's something that looks like it's a civil dispute, we can't try to decide it up here unless it has something to do with the city ordinance. But I think it's always appropriate to tell somebody to get an attorney. That's the advice. Anytime I can't give legal advice on something, I say you need to get an attorney. And that's what I'm saying, because we can't do that unless there's some violation of city ordinances. But I'd be interested to hear what the result is of your meeting with Mr. Carpenter if you choose to do that. Because if anybody's got an answer, if there is an answer, he'll have one.
All right, moving on. Gentlemen, yep, with your hand up, come on up, please. I need you to state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brian Ruden, BrianRuden, address 9670 Dallas Street. Mr. Mayor and council members, I am the owner of the Starbuds dispensary chain in Colorado, and I met with Laura Bauer because at the location I just gave the address for, I'm applying for some licenses, and she made me aware of a problem with the local rules. And what that problem is, currently under the Commerce City regulations, you're allowed one license for one location. And what I would like to do, and the reason she brought it to my attention, is I would like to have multiple licenses at that one location. So the multiple licenses that I'm proposing for the spot include both a retail, which is recreational, marijuana infused products license, as well as a medical marijuana infused products license. And then to support that, a medical cultivation and also a recreational cultivation. So that would include 4 licenses for one location, which under current rules would not be provided for. So under state law, it's certainly okay to do. And I already have several locations with multiple licenses. And so Laura suggested that I come to the citizen communication and make the council aware of the difference between the local rule and the state rule and see if that could be changed. Now, in reality, and the practical side of this is that whether I have multiple licenses or one license, my business there is essentially the same. The only difference is if I have multiple licenses, the state might have different tags that I have on the products, but the fact that I'm manufacturing the products doesn't change. So if I produce 100 candy bars and 50 of them have a label that say medical and 50 that have a label that says retail, the practical ongoings of the facility don't change. It's just 2 different labels. And there's some specific reasons that I'm looking to do that. The downside to the city to changing that rule, there really aren't any, because as I said, it's the same thing. The upside is the city will collect additional application fees and additional licensing fees. The application fee is $2,500 per application and $5,000 for the license fee. So if I put one of those licenses there, the city collects $7,500. If I'm allowed to put all four there, the city collects $30,000. So the upside is that the city collects more fees. There's no downside. And the upside for me is that I can serve a little bit wider of a market. Thank you.
You know, I did talk to the city manager a little bit. He told me that we may expect to see some folks here from the industry because of the separation between those businesses, a physical separation. And he said that staff's working on that and that you should be in touch with the staff. They're trying to figure out a solution to take care of just exactly what you talked about.
All right, that's great. And then, again, my name is Brian Rudin. I've been in the industry since 2009. I'm a Colorado attorney, and I'd like to offer, if any of the council members or the mayor or anybody would like advice, I'd like to offer my services because I've been through a lot of these issues, and if there's any way that I can help, please let me know.
Do you happen to do anything with shared driveways?
I don't.
All right. I was trying for you, ma'am. I was working on it. Thank you for coming in today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now, is there anyone else in the audience that has a desire to speak to the council this evening? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our agenda. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight there are 6 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone on council wish to remove an item off of the consent agenda for further discussion and a separate vote? Seeing no one, I'd like to ask the city attorney to read the titles of the consent agenda.
We need a motion first.
Motion. Mr. Bullock?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Now, Bob, will you read the titles of the consent agenda?
Title of Ordinance Z 923-15, an ordinance rezoning the property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at 6310 Poplar Street, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the City of Commerce City to reflect said rezoning. Title of Ordinance 2056, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Tony Grampsis Youth Services Grant Funds in the amount of $79,119 for the support of youth marijuana use prevention and the authorization of the expenditure thereof. Title of Ordinance 2057, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Adams County Open Space Grant Funds in the amount of $149,609 for the support of irrigation replacement Phase 1 at Buffalo Run Golf Course and the authorization of the expenditure thereof. Title of Ordinance 2058, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Adams County Open Space Grant Funds in the amount of $359,450 for the support of the Second Creek Community Park Expansion Acquisition Project and the authorization of the expenditure thereof. Title of Ordinance 2059, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the development of the Adams County Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds in the amount of $165,000 for the Derby Infrastructure Project and the authorization of the expenditure thereof. Title of Resolution 2015-61, Resolution in support of recertification application for qualified state enterprise zone areas within the city. And that's the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Bob. I have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Should be there.
There it is. For the record, the consent agenda has been passed unanimously by those seated here today. There are 2 excused absences, so a 7-0 vote. So consent agenda has been approved. We'll move on to public hearings. We have a resolution we need to deal with first, which is 2015-45, which was an annexation request. Mr. Gaylor, would you please let us know what's going on with this one?
This resolution is based upon an application that the city had received for annexation of certain property to the city of Commerce City. On today's date, July 6, 2015, the city received a correspondence from the attorney representing the owner of that property requesting that the application for annexation be withdrawn. As a result, then, the city council then is placed in the position of deciding whether or not to allow the withdrawal of the application, and if so, then it would take a motion to accept the withdrawal and to cancel the hearing scheduled for July 6th, today's date, and also there was a publication for consideration of the same issue on July 20th. So the motion would be to accept the withdrawal of the annexation application and to cancel the hearing scheduled for July 6th and the proceeding scheduled for July 20th.
All right. Is there anyone on council for a motion? Mr. Benson?
Well, I had a question first. I'd like to have some background on this about what's going on, what happened. Because I know this is a parcel of property that we've been looking at for.
This is a piece of property that is not surrounded by the city, so the city cannot force an annexation. It's not a unilateral annexation.
Is this the Hammer property?
Yes. And Mr. Hammer owns the property, and as a result, he has decided at this point that he doesn't want to proceed with annexation in the city, and he has requested that his annexation petition be withdrawn.
Then I would move that we allow the withdrawal and cancel the hearing set for July 6th and July 20th.
All right. Is there a second? Steve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to allow the withdrawal and to cancel the public hearing for today and for July 20th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Next, we move into Ordinance Z 922-15. I will open the public hearing, and I'll invite the staff forward to make their presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. As previously stated, the case this evening is case Z-922-15. The applicant is Marty Farms, LLLP. Their request is to amend their existing PUD zone document for 2 tracts where they currently retain ownership, specifically tracts A and F of Marty Farms filing number 2 subdivision. The Marty Farms development is an industrial development. It's generally located south of 96th Avenue, to the west of Yosemite Street, north of the canal, and east of the UP Railroad. The 2 tracts this evening are currently a part of the Marty Farms PUD zone document. They're on the very northern edge, end of the industrial development, Tract A on the left-hand side of the image and Tract F on the right. The future land use plan for these two tracts does call it out for general industrial uses, which is a medium to heavy intensity industrial zone district. And the surrounding area is also called out for similar types of uses. These are two images of the subject properties. Tract F, this is the northeast corner of the property looking to the southwest, and then Tract A on the bottom, again at the northeast corner looking to the southwest. Brief history of the zoning. The original Marty Farms PUD was approved back in 2004. It created the original Marty Farms entitlements for property zoned I-1, I-2 with certain restrictions, and I-3. It was subsequently amended 2 years later in 2006. That amendment did apply to the entirety of the industrial development. There were three main amendments that took place. If a development was not able to meet a bulk standard, they were required to obtain a conditional use permit. There were certain prohibitions on salvage operations and auto auctions, and it revised some internal circulation within the development. This is the PUD that's currently in effect for the entirety of Marty Farms. The request by the applicant this evening is to essentially amend three items for those two tracts. The first related to the bulk standards, the second related to customizing a use for these two tracts, as well as increasing the design standards. The amendment before you this evening will only apply to these two tracts. None of the other tracts or lots will be impacted. And there is no specific development proposal driving this request. It's just based on some market needs and demands that the applicant has experienced over the course of the last probably 11, 12 years. The request for bulk standards is essentially to bring these bulk standards into conformance with a more traditional I-2 zone district that's found in our land development code. Just as a refresher, bulk standards refer to things like lot sizes, floor area ratios, building setbacks, building heights, things of that nature. The DRT and the Planning Commission support the requested changes to ensure that the lots and buildings for these two tracts remain attractive for future development. The current uses on the subject properties highlighted with the red lines. It's currently a mix of I-1 in the northeast corner, I-2 with restrictions in the northwest corner, and then I-3 in kind of the south of the tract on the left there. There is 3 zone districts currently on this tract, which is also problematic for future development. The proposed uses is essentially just an underlying traditional I-2 from the Land Development Code with the addition of a few more retail or light industrial types of uses for things like convenience stores, retail stores, restaurants, things of that nature. Additionally, they are proposing to exclude or prohibit certain more intense uses that may not be compatible with the area or adjacent development. For example, things like firewood storage or vehicle storage or day labor facilities, those sorts of things have been prohibited. In terms of the analysis of the use, the DRT and Planning Commission supports the customized I-2 zoning. It would allow the additional uses while eliminating uses that would be incompatible with the area. As well, the PUD amendment will eliminate the split zoning on the Tract A, which will provide additional predictability both for the city, surrounding businesses, as well as future users. In terms of the increased design standards, there's essentially 3 things that they're proposing to increase, which is the treatment of the facades of any future buildings, the parking requirements for large vehicles, and the location for outdoor storage on these 2 tracks. In terms of the analysis of the design, the DRT and Planning Commission supports the architectural interest along 96th Avenue. This is obviously a heavily traveled corridor, so increasing these design standards will certainly increase the aesthetic appeal of the corridor. In terms of public comment, as of this date, staff received 1 inquiry seeking just additional information on the request. In terms of PUD approval criteria, it does meet all of the PUD approval criteria. Staff would certainly be happy to answer any questions related to these. We won't go through each of these individually, but the applicant and the application certainly have met the PUD rezoning requirements. In terms of the recommendation, last month on June 2nd, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval for the requested PUD amendment. And that would conclude staff's presentation. However, we certainly are available for any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the staff at this time from the council? Seeing none, is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward and add anything to this hearing? Mr. Marty? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
You should have said no. Said no.
No? All right. Is anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this rezoning? Raise your hand if you want to come up and talk. Seeing no one. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to ask if council wishes to discuss this case. Seeing no one, I'm going to ask for a motion. Mr. Benson?
Yes, move for the passage of ordinance
Planning Commission.
approval of the Planning Commission findings of fact.
All right, I have a motion to approve the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission. Is there a second? Councilwoman Carson?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now I need an introduction for the ordinance. Mr. Bullock.
Move to introduce Move to introduce public hearing ordinance Z 922-15.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Teeter?
Second.
Thank you. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance approving the Second Amendment to Marty Farms Industrial Center PUD zone document.
Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, it's approved on first reading. 7 in favor, 2 excused absent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to ordinance Z 204-79-15. I will open that public hearing and invite the staff forward to make their presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. The next case before you this evening is Z-204-79-15. South Adams County Fire Protection District is proposing to change the zoning of Fire Station Number 4, which is located at 8600 Rosemary Street, from its current agricultural zoning to public zoning. As I mentioned, the property is currently zoned agricultural. The surrounding area contains a mix of residential, commercial, industrial, and public uses, both within Commerce City as well as in unincorporated Adams County. The subject property is identified for continued public uses at this site. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of East 86th Avenue and Rosemary Street. It is just south of the driveway to the Municipal Services Center. It is currently developed with the original volunteer fire station as well as a maintenance shop. The existing fire station was built in 1960, and the shop was built in 2007. That's shown at the rear of the site there. The volunteer station is currently undergoing demolition in preparation for a redevelopment of the site. Looking at the case history a bit, it was annexed in 1979 and was zoned agricultural. Currently, fire stations are only allowed in the public zone district. This makes the existing use legally non-conforming. The current request is to rezone the property from agricultural to public because the fire district proposes to demolish and rebuild the fire station as a 2-story station to accommodate a full-time staff. The existing shop is proposed to remain, and a development plan for this redevelopment is currently under administrative review. However, since the property is currently legally non-conforming, this zone change is needed in order for the redevelopment to be approved. To look at the increase in service demand over time, this aerial shows the development in the area as of 1993. Over the last 20 years, there's been a significant increase in development, especially industrial development to the north, as shown here in a 2014 aerial. This yellow circle represents a 1-mile radius around the station. The Planning Commission determined that the existing use and the proposed redevelopment are consistent with the comprehensive plan and will result in a significant positive impact to the surrounding area through the ability of the fire district to provide an enhanced level of service in a growing area of the city. There were no comments received opposing the zone change, and as of today, there have been no responses to public notice regarding this request. On June 2nd, 2015, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted 5-0 to recommend approval to City Council regarding this request. Thank you for your consideration on this matter this evening, and staff's available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. All right. Council, have any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here from the fire district who want to come up? Anything you'd like to add to the presentation that we were just given?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is John Sattler. My firm, Diversified Consulting Solutions, we represent the fire department. Kevin Vinsel couldn't be here this evening. He's involved in an investigation from a large warehouse fire that occurred on Saturday. So I'm here solely to represent the district. The only thing I'd like to add is just appreciation for staff and Planning Commission reviewing this application. We believe that it certainly is consistent with the comprehensive plan and will result in increased service for the community and the area directly related to the station. So that's really about all we have to offer.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone on council that has any questions for the applicant? Seeing no one, thank
Sean.
you. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Just an off-the-wall question. Did we ever figure out the holding pond or the drainage pond?
We are in the process of getting that resolved. We had a meeting last week with Public Works and with members of the Planning Commission, and we are very, very close. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, thank you very much for coming in. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council regarding this item? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm going to ask the council if they wish to discuss this case. No.
I guess I can speak to it. As of today, the station floor is on the ground and cleaned up, so they are ready to move forward with this project.
I saw him, Mr. Teeter, I saw the demolition taking place today. Any other questions or concerns, comments? Seeing none, I'm open for a motion. Councilwoman Carson?
Move to approve the facts and findings of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter?
Second.
A motion second to approve the findings and facts of the Planning Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now I'm open for a motion to introduce the ordinance. Mr. Douglas?
I could make a motion to introduce the ordinance Z 204-7915.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll ask the city attorney to read the title.
Title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance rezoning the property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part hereof, located at 8600 Rosemary Street, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the city of Commerce City, Colorado to reflect said rezoning.
Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Let the record show 7 in favor, 2 excused absences. It's introduced on first reading. And before I move forward, being this is the fire district and being that they already had a firehouse there, I want to ask what the costs of a rezoning for this property, what that entails to their district. Do you know what those costs are?
The application fee for a rezoning, I believe, is $600 plus 30 per acre. The exact amount that was paid is in the case file with the application.
I just want to be careful that we don't, I want to be careful and make sure that we're being good partners to the other entities within our community that are providing service to the same customers that we are when it comes to trying to make it affordable for them to be able to improve their operations. Being that there was a firehouse there before and all they're doing is improving that, I just feel hesitant to charge them an exorbitant amount of money to make the changes necessary for them to provide that service to the same people that we represent. So keep that in mind as the fire district continues to do improvements and to upgrade, that I want to make sure that we're being as fair as we can to other entities within our jurisdiction, because we are all providing the same service for the taxpaying residents of this community. All right? Thank you. Moving on.
Wait, Bob has this.
Bob?
If you wanted, a copy of the check is in the file at $620 for your information.
$620 I'm not worried about. I just want to I don't want to make it so impactful on new development for the fire district or redevelopment for the fire district that because of our fees, they don't end up doing something that would better the community. I would rather work with them on fees because they are providing services to this community. So I just want to be clear that I want to make sure we're being true partners with the other entities within our community. All right?
Thank you.
Moving on. Before I go into this next resolution, it's Resolution 2015-47. I know we have a guest here. I'd like to ask them to stand up. A good friend of mine, Anthony Graves from Denver, Colorado. He is, and Evan Dreyer is in the back as well, chiefs of staff for Mayor Hancock. And Mayor Hancock is a very good friend of mine, as is Anthony and Evan Dreyer. And they're here while we take up this resolution through 2.5 years worth of negotiation and partnership with Denver on DIA. So thank you both for being here this evening. Now, we're going to take up Resolution 2015-47. I'm going to ask the council if they have any questions regarding this resolution. Seeing none, I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and address the council on this issue. Seeing none, I'm open for a motion to approve the resolution. Councilwoman Elliott.
Move to approve Resolution 2015-47. Council is seated.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Before I take a vote, I want to thank all of the partners that were involved in this, and that includes all 5 of the Adams County Commissioners, mayors and representatives from Brighton, Thornton, Federal Heights, and Aurora. Myself, and I want to thank Mr. Teeter. He was the other representative from this council. A lot of effort and time went into this agreement.
You have the wrong one.
No?
Yes, you do. This is a community block grant.
Really?
Yes.
So then I'll wait. You had to let me get halfway through it, huh?
I didn't know where you were going.
All right. Yeah, I thought, I know I remember the first one. Well, never mind, we'll hold off. We got the resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between Adams County, Commerce City regarding the conduct of the Community Development Block Grant Program. I have a motion and a second. Please read the title.
Title reads, a resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between Adams County and the City of Commerce City regarding the conduct of the Community Development Block Grant Program.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
Mr. Teeter.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now let's go on to the one that I was thinking of.
No.
No? All right. 2015-63. Does the council have any questions regarding this resolution? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and address the council on this issue? Seeing no one, I'm open for a motion to approve the resolution. Mr. Teeter.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2015-63.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney read the title?
Title reads, Resolution Amending Council Policy Number CP-12 relative to City Council use of recreation facilities, Buffalo Run Golf Course, and park shelters.
Thank you. I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now to the one I was thinking of. 2015-68. Does council have any questions regarding this resolution? Seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward concerning this resolution? No? No one? All right, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Teeter.
Move to approve Resolution 2015-68.
Mr. Douglas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and now I can finish my spiel. I already said I wanted to thank all the other mayors and the county commissioners and Mr. Teeter for 2.5 years of work on this agreement. I'd also like to thank the city manager and the city attorney because they had to attend all those meetings as well. We wouldn't have gotten here without staying our ground on what we felt was right for our community. 25 years later, there's still no development along the perimeter of the airport, therefore not enhancing economic opportunity for our community. I do believe this agreement allows for some development to happen along corridors that will be beneficial for economic development in our community as well. I think it's a great partnership, and we will receive 50% of all the tax revenue from any development that occurs on the airport, plus a $10 million upfront payment. This does have to go before the voters of Denver and Adams County, and both of those elections need to be successful for this to happen. People have asked me, well, what's the alternative? The alternative would mean that we could stagnate economic development for years to come because we would be involved in lawsuits with each other. And instead, we've formed a partnership that I think is true to all of our residents and beneficial to all communities involved. And I think this is the one way to help grow our state economy and our regional economy above and beyond what we've had the opportunity in the past. I think it's a good agreement, and I'm very supportive of all the effort that went into it. The good times and the bad, because there was a lot of times that it wasn't fun to go to these meetings, but I think we did finally arrive at a win-win scenario for the general public in the metropolitan area. Mr. Benson, do you have something you wanted to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Has the Denver City Council acted on this, or are they doing that tonight or tomorrow? When?
They did.
Did they do it last week?
Yeah. I believe it was last week, Evan, correct? Yep, last week.
Right, okay, good. That's all I have.
Before I call for the vote, Councilwoman Carson?
I just wanted to thank everybody involved. I know it was a lot of work, but I do want to take a minute to thank the mayor. It was a lot of hard work on your part. It was great leadership on your part. Every single report that we did receive from the mayor was very clear and detailed of what was presented at the meetings, and I appreciate all of that clarity that you brought to us. I also appreciate your leadership that you showed. The city is, my belief, definitely benefiting. I believe all parties will benefit from this, but thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Benson?
Is this going on the ballot this fall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that part of the resolution? Is there going to be another?
No, that'll be a separate ordinance. at the appropriate time to
So we've
place
got
it.
about another month.
It won't be a Commerce City ballot issue, it'll be an Adams County
Okay,
ballot
so it's Adams
issue.
County then.
So you won't be
All right.
approving the election
Okay.
ballot.
Good, that's good.
Mr. Bullock.
I would also like to thank the mayor for his diligence and Mr. Teeter and for attending all those meetings because I'm glad that we didn't have to attend them. We got detailed reports from every one of those meetings, and it was like being there except not having to spend the whole day. So I want to thank you for your presence, Mr. Teeter's presence, city attorney, and the city managers for doing such a great job for the citizens of Commerce City and staying the course and not wavering. Thank you.
Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo everyone's comments. I appreciate Mayor and Councilman Teeter and Brian and Bob as well for going the extra mile. I know at one time we didn't think we were going to get this far. We're going to ever find this resolution to this situation, but we're here on first reading, so I appreciate all the effort that's been done so far, and hopefully we get past that hump on November. So, thank you.
Councilwoman Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to, again, thank everyone that was involved in these negotiations. I'm just glad we made it to this point. I mean, this is something to celebrate and look forward to. So I have a positive outcome, or I have to feel there's going to be a positive outcome with the vote that goes out in November. I really want to enforce that we've taken, you and staff have taken long strides, not always the easy road, but you always kept the city in mind and what was best for our community, and that's what the residents need to know, and that we have their best interests at mind. So I do hope that they realize that this is a huge accomplishment, but we're still not done yet. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a big deal. It has, you can see with Mr. Teeter, it forced open heart surgery. This was a trying time. And I know some of that contributed, Rick.
May have.
I know it did. I'd like to ask our guests, Evan and Anthony, if they would like to come up to the podium if they have anything to say before we call this vote. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Mayor Ford, members of City Council, my name is Evan Dreyer. I am Mayor Hancock's Deputy Chief of Staff in Denver. I just want to thank you all for, especially you, Mayor Ford, and Councilman Teeter, for hanging in there with us over the last 2.5 years. It was not always easy, it was not always fun, but it was very important. Councilwoman, to your point, this is a very important night, but we are not done. It's a long road to November, and we're going to need all of your help. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anthony, do you have anything you want to say? All right. Thanks for being here. All right. There be no further comments. Please read the title.
And I might say, before I read the title, you notice at the close of this resolution, there is a provision that minor amendments can be made to this agreement. I'm talking about a few typos that I found that will be discussed on Wednesday. And so this resolution allows the mayor, with the approval of the ACC, to make any of those type of minor amendments, nothing substantive. So having said that, the resolution reads, resolution approving agreement between Adams County Coordinating Committee and the City and County of Denver regarding Denver International Airport.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
And tied to this resolution Wednesday at Commerce City Rotary, I will have the opportunity to have Michael Hancock as my guest, and we will talk about the agreement more in depth. So if any of you would like to join us, the Commerce City Rotary Club, at noon at El Jardines, you're more than welcome to come and listen to more of the agreement. Thank you. All right, now we'll go into ordinances on first reading. Ordinance 2060. Anyone on council have anything regarding this ordinance? Councilwoman Elliott? Councilman Bullock?
I'm here to make the motion.
All right. Before you do, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? Seeing no one, Mr. Bullock. Oh, Mr. Douglas, do you have something over there?
Yes. Now, we're going to see the presentation first, right?
Nope.
No?
You had it.
Why? I saw it.
Now's the chance for you to bring up your concern. Go ahead.
All right. I rather not, or I would not will vote yes on this. I rather see a state solution, because as I go through this, and as presented to us earlier discussion, I don't find that there's a lot of strong language in this that's going to help support the citizens. It's more so, I don't even see as far as ruling there for construction as well. So I wish to hold off and have more discussion about this.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
I can understand Mr. Douglas's concerns, but seeing how for the last 3 years that a state solution hasn't been brought forth, and I truly believe that if enough cities get behind their own construction defect ordinance, the state's going to have to follow suit sooner or later. But if we sit and wait for the state to play partisan politics, we might be another 10 years down the road, and we're going to still have either, we know we have construction coming already with a condominium townhouse project that's coming to the city. So I would rather have something on the books that is going to back up our residents as far as Commerce City is concerned, and not wait for the state, because I just don't have faith in the state as of yet. So it's my feeling that we need to move forward and do something, because sitting around isn't getting nothing accomplished, and we have projects, the one that's in front of us, and then there's a couple other that's going to be coming forward. I think that we have to be the masters of our own ship and not wait for the state.
All right, I'm going to go next. I see your lights on, Mr. Douglas, but I'll give you a chance and I'll come back to you. Metro Mayor's Caucus and all the municipalities within the Metro Mayor's Caucus have supported doing this because the state could not find resolution this past year. And as an economy for our state, we can't continue to not make it beneficial for developers to build multifamily owner-occupied projects within the metropolitan area. This is an ordinance that Parker and Lakewood and several others have passed prior to giving the legislature a chance to fix the problem. They did not fix the problem this past year, and I think as a metropolitan area, we need to help force that hand and put into place our own ordinance so that we can make sure we're ensuring opportunity for development of multifamily owner-occupied opportunities within our own community. So I will be supportive of it. Now, Mr. Douglas, you have the floor.
Okay. Now, within this, we can, by accepting this, we can also go in and change our ordinance on building codes. Is that correct?
Mr. Douglas, could you restate your question?
I said, by allowing this to go forward, just saying that this is a yes vote, we also have an opportunity to amend or change some of our ordinance when it comes to construction as far as permitting and things like that, correct?
You would?
As far as putting teeth into the language?
You are correct. This ordinance doesn't, in and of itself, amend the city's building code.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I do have a motion and a second. I'm open for the city attorney to read the title, please.
Title reads, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Commerce City Revised Municipal Code by the adoption of Article 9 concerning the repair of construction defects.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. All those in favor, I need a roll call vote. I'm sorry.
Mover and the seconder on that.
The motion was Councilwoman Carson, I believe, correct?
I thought.
No, Mr. Bullock. Mr. Bullock was the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Who was the second? Mr. Douglas, was it you?
No, I just heard you go into discussion. See, I didn't hear the...
Yeah, no, Mr. Bullock made the motion.
Yeah, Steve, we thought Steve was going to make a motion. He didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Bullock, would you restate the motion, please?
Move to introduce ordinance 2060, council on first reading.
All right, Mr. Douglas?
Second.
Now I have a motion and a second for you. The title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Thanks for keeping me straight up here. I know that's not an easy task. I was still back in resolutions. All right, for the record, the ordinance is introduced on first reading, 7-0. There are 2 excused absences. We'll move on to ordinance 2063. Does council have any questions regarding this ordinance? Mr. Douglas? No?
No, it's for previous, sorry.
Mr. Bullock? No? Okay. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'm open for a motion, Mr. Bullock.
Move to introduce ordinance 2063, council is seated.
Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Colorado Department of Transportation grant in the amount of $15,128 for DUI enforcement efforts and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. The title's been read, and I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, it's been introduced unanimously, 7-0, and 2 excused absences. Next item, ordinance 2065. Is there anyone on council that has any questions regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Bullock.
Move to introduce ordinance 2065 on first reading, council is seated.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Colorado Department of Transportation grant in the amount of $3,190 for click-it or ticket efforts and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Steve?
Thank you.
For the record, the ordinance is introduced on first reading unanimously, 7-0, and 2 excused absences. Next item, ordinance 2064. Does anyone on council have any questions regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? I almost thought Danny was ready to come up. All right, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Bullock.
Move to introduce ordinance 2064, council is seated.
Thank you. Councilwoman Elliott?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney read the title, please?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by appropriating a portion of the unencumbered fund balance of the general fund in the amount of $82,400 and transferring a portion of the unencumbered fund balance in the general fund to the CIPP fund in the amount of $39,380, transferring $40,000 from the Solid Waste Fund to the CIPP Fund, $355,000 from the Impact Fees Fund to the CIPP Fund, appropriating a portion of the unencumbered fund balance in the CIPP Fund in the amount of $550,000, Urban Renewal Authority Fund in the amount of $50,000, and the Police Donation Fund in the amount of $44,021.59, for a total amount of $1,160,801.59, and reaffirming prior appropriations and authorizing the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I've got a motion and a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance is introduced unanimously on first reading, 7-0, 2 excused absences. Now we'll move into administrative council business. Is there any administrative council business? Mr. Bullock?
None.
No?
I forgot to cancel my light.
All right. Mr. Benson?
A couple of things, maybe three things. First of all, with regard to the driveway issue, I would ask that I would move that the council instruct the staff to look into an amendment to our building code which would prevent this sort of thing from happening in the future. That you have a single lane driveway serving two houses coming from the street. Just prepare some kind of a modification.
Is that a motion?
I said that I move.
That's what I figured it was. I just wanted to clarify.
That's what constitutes a motion.
Just wanted to clarify.
Say that you move.
Just clarify. Is there a second to Mr. Benson's motion? Mr. Douglas?
Second.
All right, I have a motion, a second, to direct staff to look into the shared driveway issue and structure something to assure us this is not going to happen in the future. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion is carried. All right. Anything else? Go ahead, Mr. Benson.
You know, in talking to, I guess, the city manager a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the sit-down restaurant up north. And I had thought, and I know a lot of other people up north have thought that this was an issue that was not maybe at the top of our economic development issues, but somewhere near the top, but I'm informed that it's somewhere near the middle. And I think that's unacceptable. And I would move that the council direct the staff to raise the level of that commitment to obtain a sit-down restaurant in the north part of town. Not necessarily at the top, because I know that maybe some industrial uses are going to produce more income for the city, but we're talking about something that the people in the north part of town have been waiting for about 12 or 13 years, and it's time that we did something about it. I know we send, 4 people to the ICSC. We're not talking to industry. We're talking to restaurants and hotels, and I don't know why we're doing that unless we're really seeking to have a restaurant move into this city. And that's where it's going to move, is going to be to around that 104th and Chambers area. So I would move that we direct the staff, city manager, to raise the level of our commitment to getting that done to at or near the top.
All right, Mr. Douglas?
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. Anytime you say move, I was just
I move. It doesn't mean I'm going to the bathroom or anything.
All right.
Second the motion.
He seconds the motion. Motion is second. Is there discussion? Mr. Bullock.
I can understand the commitment that we would love to have for a sit-down restaurant, that this has been something that's been on the on mine and on economic development's books for as long as I've been on council, and even when I was off council. And I don't know how I'm trying to put this, that where they have it in their list of priorities, is not important, you know. Sometimes I feel like what is really important to us on council becomes a priority, and you're thinking that they aren't working hard enough to try to come forward with these opportunities. I just, in my mind, I feel that this isn't the type of request that if we don't believe that economic development is working towards trying to get a sit-down restaurant up north, you know, it's to me, it's one of the things that people on council say, let's not micromanage, and it seems like the ones that say it the most are the ones that want to do it the most. So I'm going to vote against this because I think economic development is doing as much as they can to do it, and just because it isn't as much a priority to them as you think it is to you, I don't think this is something that we should be delegating and voting on to tell staff, okay, we want you to do this, and then if it doesn't come up in a year, what are we going to say? You're still not working hard enough? I mean, they can only come when they come. You can't make them come. If we could make them come, they'd be here. But that's just my opinion.
All right. Mr. Teeter.
I'm going to agree with Renee on this. I don't weigh in that much, but I do believe staff has this at the top of their level. If they don't have this at the top of their level, we got the wrong people in position. I think they're doing whatever they can do to make this happen. And if it's out there and they can bring it, they're going to get it done.
Okay. Mr. Benson.
Yes. This is a matter of policy. It's not micromanagement. I was told by the city manager that the quest for a sit-down restaurant up north is not up here, but it's down here. It's not down at the bottom, which would say that they don't care anything about it. It's in the middle someplace. And I think as a matter of policy, it's up to this council to direct the city manager and the staff to start spending more time on this issue. Not how to go about that, but just this is a matter of a higher priority than the staff has been giving it. Based on what I've said before, where people have been waiting 13 or 14 years, the only sit-down restaurant we've got up there is essentially Buffalo Run and the Asian Fusion restaurant. I would just like to see that placed at a higher priority. And if we're going to send 4 or 5 people out to a 3 or 4 day Las Vegas vacation to walk around and talk to all these restaurants, why are we doing that if it's not at or near the top of our priority list? And I think that's where this issue ought to be. And I would say also, we're not going to do that, then we need to put in our city newspaper about where this issue is. It is only somewhere in the middle. It's not a top priority for us. Let the people know, because a lot of people think that the city's really doing everything it can. And if it's somewhere in the middle, that tells me that the city is not doing everything it can to accomplish getting that restaurant. Why do we go to ICSC? We've never had any success out of ICSC at all, according to the questions that I've asked. I think it's a good idea to continue to go out there to try to get something. But why are we doing it if our quest for a restaurant is somewhere in the middle and not up here at or near, not necessarily at the top, but at or near the top? So I'm certainly voting for this, and I would encourage a majority of the people here tonight to vote for it.
All right, Mr. Douglas.
I'm not saying that our staff's not working hard, because I know they are. We had talked about this at our winter retreat, and the economic development feels that they're not close enough to what the city would like as far as working with them. I think they need more resources, and if that's needed, making sure that we're competitive on permits and everything with the other city, to streamline the process. Just trying to find some new avenues for his restaurant to come in. And as we wait, we know the landowners, we also have a problem with companies that want to do business here, that the land is very expensive, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million for an acre of land. That's not very desirable for a restaurant coming in and having those high costs. So sometimes we know that the economic development is working. Sometimes they work behind the scenes just to protect their interests. So I'm not disagreeing at all with Councilman Teeter or Renee. I just think that we need to show our residents that we are working hard and encouraging our economic development to bring a restaurant in. So, I mean, I think that's what Mr. Benson was saying, not to take anything away from anybody else, but that we're all behind it, and we want to see this come in as far as a sit-down restaurant. And, you know, we also need it down here in the core city as well. But the main thing is the economic driving engine. Everything else is falling into place, and that's one piece of the puzzle that has not fallen on the board. So, thanks.
All right, I'm going to go next. I know Brian's waiting to talk as well. Oh, yeah, I'm going to. When Mr. Benson says that ICSC is a vacation, it's not a vacation. You spend 10 or 12 hours a day doing nothing but walking from one restaurant provider to another in constant meetings. And Mr. Benson was there, and he knows our effort has been, at every time we go, to get a restaurant to come into this community, south and north. The market drives the selection for restaurants. They tell us that our daytime population needs to increase. They tell us that our traffic needs to increase. And when we get one, we'll get three. I will tell you, I was at ICSC and I met with restaurants from all different sorts and sizes. We had the Native Grill and Wings was going to go in. Now, I would very much support a motion to add additional incentive for that first restaurant and to do whatever it takes to get that first restaurant to come. But to sit here and say that the city's not doing everything they can to get a sit-down restaurant, I think is wrong. So if someone wants to make a motion to add additional incentives so that it'll offset some of those costs that Mr. Douglas has said are out there, I'm willing to do that. But I won't sit up here and say that ICSC is a vacation or that it's ineffective. Therefore, I will not support this motion, but I'll support one to do more to get that sit-down restaurant. Councilwoman Carson.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say. I'm not sure that I would have went around the way Mr. Benson has done this. What the mayor has said, I very much could support that we could give the economic development team some assistance, and maybe we really put something out there to get that first restaurant in. Living up north, and I'm sure everybody on council hears from citizens in the north, but those of us that live there hear it continually, and people are very upset, and they are upset with the city because of the fact that we all go to Prairie Center to eat. I don't know if they're counting us as their daytime population, because I see my neighbors, no matter where I eat up there, anytime, day or night. So I know Commerce City is up there. I believe that population up around that Prairie Center would probably look close to what ours would look up here, between 104th and 120th. So whatever we can do to help the economic development team, whether it's really an aggressive incentive package or what, I would very much support. So I will make that motion. If somebody wants to assist me in saying what we want to put in it, or
I have a motion on the floor, so that has to wait.
So can we make this as a friendly amendment?
There's a motion and a second. You could amend the motion.
Yes, she can amend the motion to add that language to the existing motion.
That's what I would like to do. Mr. Benson?
I have something to say first.
Okay, Mr. Benson.
You know, we're talking about micromanagement. Micromanagement is telling the staff how to do something instead of just giving them a policy change. That you're trying to tell them how to do this. That's micromanagement.
No, I don't believe I am.
Well, it is micromanagement. That's not just a policy direction. That's micromanagement. I want to leave it up to the staff to determine how to do this to raise that level. I was told by the city manager, the sit-down restaurant is down here someplace, not at the bottom, but down here someplace. It's not up here. I'm saying I want to raise that priority at or near the top, not tell them how to do it. That's micromanagement. And I'm not going to move that anybody engage in micromanagement or support that. So I guess I wouldn't agree with that amendment because I think the staff is smart enough to figure out on their own. They just need some policy direction. I'm not going to tell them how to do it. I think Brian and his staff know how to do this if they're given the direction to give this a higher priority. And that's all I'm moving. And I've heard about this, well, the daytime population. You know, a mile south of 104th, we have the wildlife refuge where there are a lot of living creatures, but no humans. And that this is costing us the ability to develop that area. And I'm reminded of Northfields when it first started out. You go south of Northfields, you've got an industrial area where there aren't very many people. You go north, at that time, 7 blocks, and you're at the wildlife refuge, the same thing we have. How did Northfields get built?
Stapleton was there.
With it.
Stapleton is...
Whoa, stop.
We're talking about a mile or two south. That was an industrial area, not the Stapleton, not the Stapleton residential area. But when they went north, 7 blocks from 49th to 56, you have the wildlife refuge. That's all filled in at this point. But that's not an excuse that we haven't got the daytime population. We just need to give this a higher priority than we're giving it right now. I was really kind of shocked to hear that it's down here someplace, but not at or near the top. It was just a shocking thing for me. And I passed that on to some of our residents, and they kind of think, well, that's not what we've heard all along. We thought that that was a top priority to get that sit-down restaurant. Just like Ms. Carson says, we're losing a lot of business to the Prairie Center, Chili's, whatever, because they don't have any place. They have Buffalo Run to go, and we all eat at Buffalo Run. But we don't have any other place to go as a sit-down restaurant. And I know, I've been to ICSC. I spent a lot of time walking around, talking to people. I think it was a lot of fun. I think we made a lot of good contacts. We handed out a lot of cards. And I'm not saying that we should stop going. But all it amounts to is a vacation because it's not accomplishing anything that we're trying to do. I don't think we should stop because one of these days, maybe it will accomplish something. We'll find somebody that wants to come into the city. But it hasn't done that in the last 10 years that we've been sending people to Las Vegas. That's all I've got.
All right, Councilwoman Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I want to say, for one, there's been a lot of growth since King Soopers has taken reign over there. We've had a lot of changes internally, staff-wise, and I have always commended our economic development team because they've always just been able to work through it with very minimal staff, very minimal direction. I know that they are aware that this is a strong priority. Based on this discussion tonight, they know it's a very strong priority for council. And so I would agree that maybe to adopt some language to say that what type of incentive could we offer for that first restaurant going in. But I don't feel that it's right for us to direct the level of I guess it's a level of urgency at this point. We hear this all the time with the daytime population, but it's fact. And also with the ICSC conferences, that can't always happen within the first maybe 1, 2, 3 year visits. I mean, you have to face these people over and over and over again. When they see what we're doing from the year prior, maybe that's when we can get people on board, these companies to come in, these restaurants to locate within our city. but we can't hold staff responsible and put them under the gun. I mean, if anything, we could take responsibility ourselves for the people that have gone to these conferences, and you know what it's like. I don't want to say that it's a vacation. I feel that it's very hard work. It's very tiring to go from one company to the next to prove why your city should be the one that they should locate in. And so I just want to commend staff on the things that we have done. We're not where we want to be, of course not, but it's not that we're not trying. So I just want to, again, support the fact that, what type of language that we can amend to offer maybe a better incentive to that first company, and then we'll have two others following soon after, I would agree.
Mr. Bullock.
I would like to second Mrs. Carson's amendment to the motion to add more incentives. And in doing so, I would like to also state that people may get confused or not have information that they should, but Forest City owns all the land over there south of 56th Avenue. When Northfields was built, Stapleton was already there, and the first industrial part of Stapleton, where Sam's Club and the Walmart and everything were already done. There was already something like 15,000 homes and apartments over there in Stapleton during that time when Northfield was being built. So, and plus the master developer was the one that was doing the whole project for a city out of Cleveland. So, I mean, sometimes people forget what actually went on before it happened. But I sat up in a meeting at the DIA partnership on the 11th floor of Stapleton Plaza, overlooking the whole project as it was being done. And I know when Stapleton was done, I know when the airport closed, and I know when Northfield started and everything. So I know what my information is. I also know that there are other entities out there doing their own economic development up north to try to get a sit-down restaurant. So it isn't just us that is pushing for it with this economic development. There's others out there that are doing it also. So it isn't something that isn't a priority on the minds of economic development. It's right there. And so in seconding the amendment to add more incentives to the amendment of the motion, I hope this is what we as council will vote on and push through something that actually is going to have some substance and teeth to it, instead of just telling somebody, okay, I want you to work harder, because I don't think you're working hard enough.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I know we're going to vote on this with that amendment, maybe bringing it to study session so we can have a debriefing or so, or some rundown of where, I mean, I know where economic development's at, but if we're going to do this, I think we need to include them too. So could this be part of the study session so we can know exactly what we're asking?
Well, we've got a few things here, Mr. Douglas. Number one, we've got a motion that says add additional incentives. We don't know what that means. I think that there's an opportunity to have a study session to structure and make it a higher priority, which I would tell you, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't speak for the council very often, but I don't think there's a higher priority for this council from an economic development standpoint, nor has there been in all the years we've sat up here, than getting some sit-down restaurants in this community. So if people are thinking that there's a misnomer that it's not a top priority for us, that's wrong. And I think that's one of the falsifications that I've heard this evening, that it's not a priority. And when Mr. Benson says it's not the city manager said it's in the middle somewhere, I know for those of us that sit up here, it's at the top. It was at the top when I went to ICSC. It's still at the top. And if there's things we can do to encourage that even more by adding new incentives, I think that we need to have clear, concise opportunity through a study session, but I want to hear what the city manager has to say before I call for a vote on this item.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I understand and appreciate Mr. Benson's concern. He's recounting a conversation that he and I had about an interest that Mr. Benson had in our staff pursuing a specific restaurant. During that conversation, I laid out for Mr. Benson, in general terms, what our economic development priorities are, and we have a number of them. Primary employment is an important effort for our economic development team. That's aggressive pursuit of primary jobs well above the county average that will locate in our community. We think that's the best key to long-term building a strong economy in our community. Another key focus for us is business retention and expansion. We have a great collection of businesses in our community already. Our best opportunity to build our economy here locally is to make sure the companies that are already here have every advantage to grow and continue to be prosperous in our community. Retail development, including restaurants, a key priority for us. But we do have limited staff. We do not have unlimited resources to pursue all of those priorities. Sometimes we do have to make choices. Primary employment is our top priority. Business retention and expansion comes after that. Responding to prospects that express an interest in our community is a top priority. These are companies that approach us through various means and express an interest in our community. We aggressively pursue those prospects. Pursuing retail, including restaurants, kind of one way, reaching out to try to attract retail, is not as high a priority as those other items. Because we have limited resources doesn't mean it's not important. What it means, though, is when we have to make choices, and with limited staff, we do sometimes have to make choices about where we're going to spend our time. Primary employment, responding to requests from prospects that express interest in our community, and working with existing businesses in our community, particularly industrial businesses, to grow and add jobs and equipment and expand in our community is very, very important to us. As you all know, we have limited ability to influence economic development, especially retail. You've made those comments already this evening. We don't build shopping centers. We don't own pad sites. Our staff does understand that that first restaurant that locates in our community is going to get the best incentives. So providing further direction in that respect, I don't believe is necessary. When restaurants express an interest in our community, we go after them aggressively. We do not have a great deal of time, though, to sort of cold call restaurants that have not expressed an interest in our community. So that provides some additional context to the conversation that Mr. Benson and I had 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. I have a motion, an amended motion, and a second before me. You heard what the city manager had to say.
Let me repeat back the motion for you, just so you have it. So the original motion was to direct staff to increase the level of commitment to secure a sit-down restaurant within the northern part of the city. The amendment that was moved and seconded is by increasing incentives. So your motion now reads to direct staff to increase the level of commitment to secure a sit-down restaurant in the northern part of the city by adding increased incentives. That is your motion.
You know, I would like to say by, among other things, adding the increased incentives, not only.
That would be another amendment.
Okay.
All right.
By, among other things.
I still have more people that want to communicate before I call for this vote. Mr. Douglas, you just went, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Benson, you just talked. Are you done?
No. You know, I would certainly vote for this as the amendment has been stated to me. I still think that telling staff how to do this is not our business. That's micromanagement. But I'll vote for it anyway if it's the only way to get this through. But I really get tired of having to complain about micromanagement. It seems like it happens all the time. And you want to complain about people complaining about micromanagement, and yet you agree to the motion that amounts to micromanagement of our staff. I just totally disagree with that, but I'll vote for it if it's going to get this passed. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Let's have the vote and see how it comes out.
Mr. Bullock.
I am considering, upon the consideration from Mr. Douglas and Mr. Mayor, to withdraw my second from that motion, and let's go into a study session and discuss this instead of trying to force feed something down, a policy down. After listening from the explanation that came from the city manager, this whole motion is out of context, I think. So I'm withdrawing my second from the amendment.
Then you're back to the main motion.
I'll second the amendment.
We're back to the main motion. I would need another amendment to bring it back to the floor since we lost the second. So right now I have the original motion which Jim made. The alternate motion which J.D. made is off the table. And I'm going to finish discussion, and if someone wants to make an amendment, if someone wants to pull it, whatever, that's up to you. So, no, your light is on now. You're after Mr. Douglas. Mr. Douglas.
No, that's just for something else.
All right. Councilman Carson.
I was going to speak before Mr. Bullock did. I would like to rescind my motion after listening to the city manager. I think that was a great explanation. Mr. Douglas is, I think, more than correct. Let's bring it to a study session and have some good conversation and see where we go from there. Thank you.
All right.
So you're making a new motion.
Seeing how we went through all of this, I would love to see this at a study session. However, I would tell you I place it high importance. I'd like to see it sooner than later. I don't want to drag our feet on it because, to Mr. Benson's point, it is very serious and it should be a priority. And I like the amendment. However, I think that we need to sit down and talk about how to do this the right way so we can have the best actual opportunity of getting that sit-down restaurant. So I don't want to be hasty in our decision tonight. So I'm supportive of going to a study session. So now I have the original motion, the original second. No other communication. I have nobody else that wants to talk. So I'm going to take a vote on the original motion. I'll do a. Would you read that original motion, please?
Yes. To direct staff to increase the level of commitment to secure a sit-down restaurant within the northern part of the city.
Okay. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
I thought they had an amendment.
We did have, but the amendment fell off, Jim. The amendment fell off.
The amendment was withdrawn by both the second and the first.
The first and second were withdrawn. That's why I said I'm ready to go to a study
Back to the main
session.
vote.
So we have the original motion that you made.
You know, I'm ready to go to a study session too. So what do we need to do to get this moving along?
You withdraw your motion, withdraw the second, then someone make a motion for a study session.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
I will so move.
Motion's
We need to get
withdrawn.
this moving along one way or the other.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I'm withdrawing my motion.
Now we need a motion for a study session.
Motion and the second have been withdrawn on all of this topic. Now, Mr. Benson, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, move that this be made the subject of a study session as soon as is practically possible, and that alternatives be presented to us to direct you as to policy not how-to matters, policy matters. That's all that I think we're entitled to do.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Any nays? Saying none, motion is carried.
I've got one more.
Administrative Council business, Mr. Benson, you have the floor.
Okay.
Mr. Benson, you have the floor.
I've learned recently, I guess in another conversation with Brian, that several of us went to Chicago to observe what the Michaels Group in Chicago was able to do with the Robert Taylor properties in Chicago, which were just high-rise, industrialized slums, you might say. They did an excellent job. Now I understand that the Michaels Group has backed out on doing anything with the Dog Creek property. And I think we ought to have either an executive session or a study session or whatever on what we're going to do with this property. We've got $6 million tied up into it. Whether we want to continue to try to get something done there, which I think would better be left to private enterprise. But we just need to have some discussion about where we're going, because we got $6 million of our taxpayers' money tied up in that piece of land that's not going anywhere. There's no plan in effect right now. Michaels Group has backed out. I thought that might have been a good secondary plan anyway, but they're gone now. Maybe we could sell it and use the money to build the Tower Road improvements. Maybe we could sell it and use the money to hire more people on our economic development staff. Maybe we could hire more people on our neighborhood services staff. $6 million that we've got tied up. It's not doing anything for us. We're not earning any income on it. It's owned by our Urban Renewal Authority. Anyway, I would just like to have a study session on that so we can figure out what's going on with our $6 million investment, the Urban Renewal Authority's $6 million investment. Whether it's a study session, an executive session, or whatever. And I'll leave that up to the city attorney and the city manager to figure out which one it ought to be.
Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next scheduled meeting to discuss the Mile High Greyhound Park is August 17th. That's the date that the developer, Rick Wells, has suggested to us. By that time, he believes he'll be ready to discuss in more detail what his plan is for moving forward with development on the property. So I would suggest, those are fair questions and fair comments. I would suggest that we have that discussion at a URA meeting that's tentatively planned for August 17th, if that's not too far into the future.
Well, I prefer that it was sooner, but if we've already got that meeting scheduled, that's what he wants to do. I mean, like I said, it's $6 million that we're not getting anything out of. The sooner, do you think we can move that up with him? Would he be willing to do it sooner than August 17th?
Well, we'd like the meeting to be meaningful, and I think it's best if we follow the developer's lead. He is pursuing other development partners, and we hope he'll have something positive to report on August 17th.
And it gives him more time to do that. I think that's fair, but at some point we've got to say this is it. And no, that's fine with me, August 17th.
Okay. Is there any other administrative council business?
I'm done.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes. I wanted to talk about the trash over there by 7-Eleven. If is there any way we could have any budget to work with Public Works to clean that up? Because I don't think I feel that's not 7-Eleven's responsibility. And was there a contract or so for those Goodwill boxes or other donation boxes that were there that are not there now? And what can we do to clean that up? Because it's becoming an eyesore.
I was speaking with the mayor about that prior to the meeting. I don't know the latest update on that situation. Under our ordinances, it is the property owner's responsibility. I don't know if in this case it's the actual owner of the property or the leaseholder, which is 7-Eleven. I don't have the latest details on it. We'll work on getting that update. Now, the city can, if notice is provided and it's creating some public health risk, we can, within a short amount of time, go on the property and take care of it ourselves and bill the property owner. I don't know that it had risen to that level yet, but again, I don't know the latest. We'll work on getting the latest information and get that out to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, if we could contact that property owner and let them know what our ordinance is, I'm sure they would comply.
I believe we've done that, but I don't know where it is in the enforcement process.
Okay. And the other, a couple more things too. The other issue is those modulars. I know this is phase 1, and phase 2, I guess, is permanent structure. Could you give us an update as far as what the timeline is for them to modify that modular and when they plan on building a permanent structure?
I'll have to see if there's any additional information beyond what was included in the city manager update. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know that there's any updated information, but I can certainly check.
Okay. Let's see, I know next week I won't be here, next Monday, and there's going to be talk about discussion of potential ballot measures. So since I won't be here, I will send a request in prior to that meeting so everybody knows what I'm asking. And then my final issue is, I know there's been discussion, I know the chief's here, discussion with the FOP. He met with the FOP, and that meeting was displayed and everything of how everything went, and we know the outcome of that. I was going to ask council, will they allow me, and if this is appropriate, to meet with the FOP, because they are, about the issue, they are our employees. Just make sure that we know that we want to take care of all our employees, knowing the situation and everything, just to be able to hear from their side on what's going on, because we got great updates and everything, but if the council will allow me to, and another council member as well, maybe even the mayor, to meet with the FOP and maybe try to bring things sides together. I don't like the way things are going, and I would at least try to help the situation, if that's appropriate.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Just a word of caution here. If this should end up in litigation, some members of the council know what you've been through when you're involved with litigation, and you might be a witness. You've been through depositions. You've been through cross-examination on the witness stand. And I just want to caution Steve, Councilman Douglas, that if you do meet with him, anything you say can come back and be repeated in a court of law if it becomes a matter of litigation. And who knows where this could go in the future. We don't know. I mean, at this point, it doesn't look like litigation. But somebody could be very unhappy with the results, and they may file a suit. Well, any discussions you've had in your capacity as a city council member, if city council authorizes you to meet with them, that could be repeated in court. So just bear that in mind.
Okay.
Mr. Benson. I'm coming to you.
I don't think that Mr. Douglas requires our approval to go talk with the FOP, as long as it's made very clear that you're not acting on behalf of the city or this council, that you're acting solely as Steve Douglas, not as a city council member, in your capacity as a city council member. You don't need our permission to do that. How do you feel about that, Mr. Gaylor?
Mr. Gaylor?
It doesn't require city council's approval. In fact, if the city council gave approval, that means then you're more involved than you otherwise would be. But even if Councilman Douglas meets on his own, what I said still applies as far as Mr. Douglas is concerned.
Right.
Just
I
that
don't think
means-
it would be a good idea, but I think it's up to Steve, who he wants to meet with, as long as you make it clear that you're acting on your own behalf and not on behalf of this council or the city. Just use Steve Douglas, citizen of Commerce City. As long as he does that, if you want to do it, I don't think it's a good idea, just like Mr. Gaylor said, but if you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I don't think we have the right to stop you from doing it on a personal basis.
Mr. Bullock.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Benson and Mr. Gaylor. It's a slippery slope. I would not do it as a personal citizen, because whether you do it as a personal citizen or not, you're still Steve Douglas, council member. And you are entering yourself into personnel issues, which is definitely a no-no with council. And if you do it alone, it's a he said, she said situation where you put yourself in the position, whether you're Steve Douglas citizen, you're still Steve Douglas city councilman, and you've walked into quicksand, because unless you have witnesses and everything's taped and you know exactly what was said, they could say you said anything they want, and you're in that position. I would suggest, if it was me, I told you this before, that that's something I would not do, because we aren't in the position to deal with personnel issues, and that's exactly where you're going to be going, because you're going to be asking them about their personnel issues. But if it's something that you feel that you really want to do, is do it, and I'm going to tell you under the utmost caution, but I wouldn't do it if I were you.
I would say, out of anybody up here, last time we went through this whole ordeal, I was asked by the FOP, please come over, or members of the FOP, please come over here to the fire station and meet with me, meet with this group. We want to tell you about what the problems are. I did. I went over, I tried to listen to what they had to say, I tried to be that person in the middle that helped make things better. Steve? It hasn't got better. But what I will tell you is, the lawsuits started to fly. I was the one being cross-examined. I was the one sitting there doing depositions. And I would have to agree with Mr. Bullock. I think you're stepping into that personnel issue. And at the end of the day, there are multiple frustrations throughout. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's our place to step in to the FOP's business and the chief's business. That's the city manager from the day-to-day operation perspective. And I will tell you, after what I went through, you've heard me say many times before, I respect and believe we have some of the best cops in the world. But I will tell you right now, I don't want to engage myself into that arena again because of the consequences. We're here to make legislative and policy decisions. And so far, this council has said we're going to support the chief. And you heard my interview. I don't know if you heard the whole thing, but I said, really, I want the chief and the FOP to work together to try to fix these problems. But by getting involved, I think you only impact yourself. So just be careful, whatever you do. Mr. Benson, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, and I know probably everybody who's sitting up here right now has been supported by the FOP in their election bid. I know all five of us who ran 4 years ago were. You didn't run. Yeah, I think Rick was, I was, you were,
Crystal.
Steve was, and so was Crystal. And I know we all feel maybe some obligation, and I think we all do support our police officers in what they do. It's just that this is more of a political matter, it seems like, and I don't know that our loyalty extends that far, but you know, both Mr. Gaylor and I have been involved in a lot of courtroom situations, and I think the use of the term slippery slope by Mr. Bullock is, you could say something innocently that could be taken the wrong way, and you might have 15 people get up and swear under oath that you said something, and you would deny that you said it. Where is that going to go with a judge or a jury? It's just, when litigation is possible, you just need to keep your mouth shut. I think that's the best policy, because it'll come back to bite you almost every time. Isn't that right, Bob? I mean,
That's correct. The bottom line is that Councilman Douglas doesn't need the approval of the city council to speak as a citizen to anybody, but, and in fact, I'd recommend you not give the approval. You don't even vote on it, because if you did give the approval, then he's there, whether he says it or not, he's representing the city council, because you've authorized him to be there. So I'd say, Councilman Douglas, you've heard the comments, do what you think you want to do, but let's not ask the city council to authorize it.
All right, Councilwoman Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more of a suggestion versus a directive, but I know where you're coming from with this, that we want to help and try to soften the blow, so to speak. But I just go back to when we first came on council, we did get the support from FOP when we ran our campaigns, but I can just remember some of the instances where we were bombarded with questions and cries for help, if you will, and we had to explain repeatedly that we are not able to be involved in any type of policy, personnel policy, that as much as we would like to see things resolved, it would have to be at city manager level. And so I want to make sure also that for the residents that are watching this on TV, that we are not trying to be negative or speak badly about the FOP. It's just the nature of the situation. We would like to see this resolved. We get questions all the time when we're on the street, when we get emails, we get text messages, whatever, and we have to answer to the residents, but we basically want to see this resolved. And I think the less interaction that we have, and it's not to say that we don't respect what they have to say or that we don't care, but I think it's just putting us in a very delicate position, which would otherwise be detrimental to not just yourself, but possibly the rest of us as well. I am hopeful that with the steps that are being taken now and the policies that are put in place, it's hard to accept change, but I do believe that there will be positive outcome. We've had a lot of change over the last few years, so we have to take that into consideration as well. But I think we're making great strides. I do support Chief Smith. I do say that I am concerned, as any member on this council would probably agree, that we are concerned of the situations, but we have to just remove ourselves from a very precarious position.
All right, Mr. Douglas.
Yes, so I'm going to withdraw my ask, and I know as a council member you can never remove that council hat. You always have it on no matter what. And I do respect Chief Smith's efforts in the ongoing talk with the FOP, and I also have respect for the FOP and officers who are not in FOP. They all are employees, and hopefully given some time and space, I did read the report thoroughly over and over, and I hope there is a resolution, because I think going forward, I think as far as policy being implemented and everything, and having our streets safe, I've heard nothing but good things about our officers. I do talk to officers. I talked to a few here a couple of days ago. We had 4th of July, and we have a great group of women and men on our police force. And so I do commend the chief for meeting with them. and hopefully there'll be some more meetings here, so we don't have that end result being negative. So I appreciate everybody's comments too. I am concerned, and I do understand about the litigation and all that too. So, but I do want you guys to understand I value your opinion and what we've been through so far, and hopefully it's a very positive outcome instead of where it is right now. So, thank you.
All right, is there any further administrative council business? Seeing none, we'll go into reports. City Attorney?
I don't have anything to add to what we've already covered tonight, except just to confirm for the council that Wednesday afternoon we have our DIA meeting with the ACC, and I will be attending. And I think the mayor has a conflict with Mayor Hancock at Rotary, but I believe Councilman Teeter will be attending. And Mr.
I will not be there either.
Okay.
Bob and Rick will be there.
That's all I have.
Yep. All right. All right. Mr. McBroom.
We did distribute via email. Tonight's edition of the city manager report is very, very short. I did want to take a moment. There's a link to a new promotional video about the city that I wanted to take the opportunity to show tonight for those that haven't seen it. It's about 30 seconds long. So I'll get that up and going. Mayor, if you'd like to do your report and then come back to me and I'll show you.
I'll go through my report real quick. I did want to mention that I met with Brian today and I talked to him about the trash up by 7-Eleven. I think that is a bad eyesore, and I think we need to get it out of there as soon as possible. I also think that we need to get the fountains turned on at City Hall. We're into July. So I think those things need to happen. I've been going to several ACC meetings. Over the last 3 weeks, there's been 3 ACC meetings. As you heard, there's another one on Wednesday. I went to Rotary 3 times in the last 3 weeks. And then I had a meeting with some of the Suncor reps. I met with representatives from the Cowley companies. I attended the DIA, State of DIA, with Councilman Teeter. And then on the 4th of July, I just want to thank all the staff, the officers, the Parks Department, the Streets Department, everybody that helped. And I want to put an extra special shout out to Julia Imco for taking care of handling all of the administrative stuff to get us on the field, to be where we needed to be. Parks Department was great. They had all the glow-in-the-dark necklaces for us to hand out. We got to mingle with a lot of the residents, flags. It was very well done this year, and thank you to all of those folks, and a special thanks to Julia for the efforts. And I think that's all I have. I'll be at Rotary on Wednesday with Michael Hancock talking about DIA. So I will not be at the ACC meeting. Mr. Bullock?
I just want to mention that myself, Miss Elliott, JD, we were all together when we watched the fireworks display, and it was a fantastic fireworks display. I can actually say ours was the best in the metro area. It was 20 minutes long, and anything they could shoot up and make explode went up there and exploded, and it was beautiful. So I want to thank the staff and everybody, and again, Mayor, what the mayor said, we were taken care of and got to every place we were supposed to be, and everything worked perfect on the 4th of July. Thank you, staff.
All right, Mr. Douglas, your lights lit?
Yeah, I also want to say I didn't watch the fireworks over here at 1 Dams 14. This is the first time to open up the school over there at the back part of the school. There's huge attendance over there. Earlier, I guess they had hot dogs and hamburgers for people and stuff, and be able to watch the fireworks from behind the school, great view. And then when it was over, you got to depart right on Quebec. So it was very well done. And just hats off to the staff for their efforts on 4th of July.
All right, Mr. Benson?
Yes, Friday a week ago, we had the E470 golf tournament out at Buffalo Run, and I'd say it was very successful. There were 18 teams of 4 people each. I only got to play the first 9 holes, but it was very successful. People were commenting on how they liked the course, that it was very well kept. And, of course, with all the rain that we've had, it really looks wonderful. So we got a lot of compliments on our golf course from the people that I heard.
Councilwoman Carson?
I also want to give kudos to staff. As a citizen, when you attend these events, they're wonderful, and you look at them in a different light. When you attend now in your capacity as city council, you realize how much work and effort it takes to put these on. So thank you to everyone. As the mayor said, Julia went way above to make sure that it went really well. Parks and Rec has their hands full to put this event on. Public Works, and thanks to our police department for keeping everybody safe. And the 4th of July is a busy time for the police department. That I do understand, and I also want to remind citizens, because we're all getting complaints about fireworks. Fireworks are illegal in the city. 4th is over, so let's move on. The next thing I did want to say is I want to tell everybody that Cultural Council's first concert for the 2015 Music in the Park series starts this Thursday, July 9th. The first one is at 6 o'clock. We'll be at Southland Park, at Reunion Parkway and Southland Circle. Rudy Grant and the Buffalo Riders will be the first concert. So it's free. Please attend and have a great evening.
Councilwoman Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, just wanted to go off of Councilmember Carson's little spiel for our Music in the Park series. What's nice about that this year is that we're actually being able to accommodate both north and south areas and picking various parks. So I definitely encourage residents to attend. And again, they're weekly, again, starting this Thursday up through July 30th. So, and then also just a kudos as well to our staff for pulling this together. I know we had a little bit of a scare with the rain and had to have some of our residents vacate some of the fields just in lieu of any type of lightning hazards, but everything went very smoothly. I thought it was really nice that we could actually adopt kids from the from the stands to go out on the field with us and throw out T-shirts to the crowd. So that was pretty fun for them. It was pretty memorable, and their parents entrusted their kids with us, which was pretty impressive. So just again, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do.
All right, just a couple of things to follow up. The fireworks are getting out of hand now that 4th of July is over in residential neighborhoods. I'm glad everybody had a good 4th of July, but it's time to stop shooting off fireworks in the neighborhoods. It is illegal, as Councilwoman Carson mentioned. I think it's also important to reflect on the fact that all of those employees that help with the 4th of July don't have the opportunity to barbecue with their families and spend time with their families because they're working. And that they're owed a little extra credit for the fact that they were away from their families and had to deal with Julia having to take us to do what we had to do, parks making sure that the residents all had flags and necklaces and that kind of stuff. So they're very much respected for that. I do need to make an announcement that I will not be here, unfortunately, because this new water park is a very, very special piece to this community for me, and I really wanted to be at the opening. But I will not be at the dedication or the opening later this week. I will have Mayor Pro Tem Bullock take care of the dedication and the opening of the water park, and when I get back, I will go and visit and tour the water park because I want to see it in its finished condition. My wife doesn't get very many days together off, and we're going to go on one of the only camping trips together that we're going to get this year. So I'm going to take advantage of her time off and leave the city in the hands of the Mayor Pro Tem for Thursday and Friday. So if anything comes up between Thursday and Sunday, Mr. Bullock will be in charge of the city, as I will be away from the community. All right? Now, Brian, show us the video. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good video. What are you listening to, All right. If there be no further business to come before this council this evening, we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And leave the city in the hands of the Mayor Pro Tem for Thursday and Friday. So if anything comes up between Thursday and Sunday, Mr. Bullock will be in charge of the city, as I will be away from the community. All right? Now.